Hello, my beautiful moms. Welcome to Daily Mom Joy with Rellie. We are continuing our Ask a Joyful Mom series this week. Last week, we reframed our definition of joy. We took the word joy and we took the traditional definition of that emotional final destination, kind of like a goal, right? Of an emotional state, if you will. And we turned it into a choice as an actionable item on our mom to-do list. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, so last week we put it into context of, we applied it to struggles that are directly tied to the things that we want in life, right? To goals, to things that are important to us. So we interviewed my guest Lily, and Lily Beth, she spoke of her personal struggle of conceiving and making that choice over and over again to do IVF, and until she got her miracle baby, right? And that pain that she endured, there was something bigger, right? Bigger than that pain for her. And that was the ultimate joy. And that pain on the other side, that was what was the goal for her. So the struggle was tied to that. But what happens when we choose joy during struggles that aren't tied to really anything, right? When we have these deep struggles that are due to life circumstances, that we get thrown a curveball and we say, what? This wasn't part of the plan. This wasn't part of my goal. This wasn't part of my plan. Like, excuse me, like, I didn't ask for this. So I'm here trying to choose joy, and what do you want me to do? So I wanted to talk about that today. And I am so honored to welcome our guest, Mischelle O'Neill, who has weathered the storms, ladies, weathered storms and struggles, right? So these are her struggles of raising a child with a mental health disorder, and someone that chooses joy every single day, because that's the whole point, right? So, hi, Mischelle. So glad to have you on.
Wow, really, I love what you were saying and talking about joy and making the choice of joy. So thank you, thank you, thank you for having me on. And I can't wait to have that conversation with moms.
Yes, yes, yes. So I have been looking forward to this episode, you guys, because when I met Michelle, she told me a little bit about her story. You know, we've had our interactions and she told me about her story. And I have to be honest, I was just like in awe. Uh, you radiate joy. You know, you are one of those people that radiates joy. You radiate positivity. The things that you say, how you interact with people and interactions with me, I've always received like, man, that's like a really positive person, right? That's someone that you can't. Do you ever just know people that you're like, I can't really picture them in a bad mood? People say that sometimes, like, like, I can't picture that person, I can't picture you in a bad mood. And I'm like, no, I got a bad side, right? We all have that spicy side. But I I felt like, wow, you have this incredible story to tell. And as soon as you spoke, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have you join the podcast because you have had this journey that is not it's no stranger to a lot of moms. Those struggles, like I said last week, we talked about those struggles that are tied to the things that we choose, the things that we love, the things that we're striving for. But man, what happens when life throws us curveballs? And having a child with a mental health disorder or a medical diagnosis or something that goes beyond what our control is, those are the moments where it's just that much tougher to have, to have that choice, right? So I thought we could start by you giving our moms that background story of how you recognized, right, the what was going on and how you came to terms with your daughter's diagnosis.
Wow. So really listening to you talk, when I was listening to you talk, I realized, well, two things popped in my head. One that, gosh, I almost felt like I wanted to cry. And I thought it's because I normally don't dwell on it. And when you hear your story or you hear that you've done something that's not normal, it just hits you all of a sudden that, wow, um, that's hard. But when you're in the midst of it, it's not that hard because you just have to live life. And I think the hardest part for me is, or for any mom, is when I noticed there was something different about my daughter. And it's as young as 2 years old, we had pictures that were taken within like a few seconds of each other. And it was like I was looking at two different, distinct, different personalities. There was this cute, happy baby. And the next minute, you see someone that I couldn't even describe it. And I was like, is this the same girl? And then as she grew up and as she was getting older as a toddler, it was hard to deal with her. And so I went through this phase of strong-willed child. That's the way, I was taught, and I was reading the books about strong-willed child, and I was like, oh, I just have a strong-willed child. And I would try everything that that book said, and nothing worked. I mean, one of the things my daughter and I joke about now is at 2 years old, I spanked her and told her, do not, and yes, I spanked back then, okay? But I told her, don't wrap yourself up in the closet. I mean, in the curtains. And she said, and I spanked her and she cried for a little second, just tap those little legs. And then she just looked at me, stopped crying, and went right back to the curtains and rolled herself up in it again. And I pulled her out and I said, didn't I tell you not to do that? Why did you do that? And she just looked at me and said, because I want to. And I realized that, and as she got older, it's the consequences didn't matter. She was going to do whatever she wanted to do. She didn't care. It was just all based on her emotions and what she wanted, to the fact that sometimes there would be bodily harm to herself. There were times when as a child, when I knew she was reaching that threshold, because you learn over time that there's a threshold. And I could actually tell as a mom when she was getting to that point where she was going over and there was no pulling her back. And so there were times when she would hit that threshold and go over, and she would just lose it. And I would just put her between my legs. I would be sitting on the floor. I would put her between my legs and wrap my arms around her and put my feet across her legs and just hold her to keep her from hurting herself. And it's just the things that you do as a mom. Your whole thing is about protecting your baby. And even then, they said she had ADHD. I mean, all her childhood, it was nothing but she has ADHD. And so we kept put her on the medicine and she became a zombie. And we finally decided, you know what? We're going to take her off. We're just going to figure out a way to handle her difference. And so we took her off, and there were times that she could manage it, but once she hit that threshold, she would lose all management. And then, growing up, they still said do you know she was not diagnosed till she was in the military? And they finally said, you're bipolar. They even said at one point she had some type of depression. But the thing is, she has bipolar 1. And the reason why is because she cycles. She continually cycles. It's high highs, lows, lows. It's not all depression. It's not all high, manic high. She cycles through those. And you never know when or what aspect you're going to get or who you're going to get. It's almost like having different people in your house. And so as a mom, you just have to learn to navigate that and figure out, people, I'm sorry, I got to tell you this. People wouldn't even want to watch my baby
Mm.
as she grew up. I mean, my friends would tell me, she's too much. We don't want to watch her. So there were certain people I could get to watch her, like other people's kids, because they can kind of play with her and keep her, occupied. But most adults didn't want to have her for a period of time. And it was hard. It was just hard. I'm going to let you talk. I'm not going to keep going on.
No, this is that visual just got to me of you sitting there wrapping your whole body around your daughter. I just visualized that in my head. And I can only imagine what you were going through in that moment and what thoughts were going through your head in that moment. and you just gave us such a description of my goal was to protect. My goal, and sometimes, ladies, this is it. We have to go back. When I say when things get complex, go back to your basics, right? Our basics as mothers are what? To protect our children, right? To instill security and to love, right? But to protect your child, you didn't know what was going on exactly. You didn't know what was going on through her mind at that point. You followed motherly instinct, which we all have, by the way. You know, sometimes it's questionable by us, right? Where we question our and second guess our intuition, or we second guess our choices. But man, what a way to lean in and say, I'm going to lean into that motherly instinct, and my instinct is to protect. And that means wrapping myself around my child like a koala bear. I will do that. Right. The other thing that stands out to me is, oh, okay, so I'm a therapist, right? Y'all know this. I am very passionate about um, misdiagnoses, right? And about the healthcare system, especially our managed care system here in the US, when it comes to behavioral health. You know, it's really turned into a medical managed care model. And I could do a whole podcast episode on that. So I'm not going to go down that train. I'm not going to go down that train. Really, really back. Um, but the point is, we have to remember that we are still in charge of our children. We have to remind ourselves that we are still in charge of what choices we make for our children when it comes to their health care, when it comes to their mental health care. Yes, we have professionals that absolutely we lean into. Listen, I know nothing about I don't know, the space. Okay, so I'm not going to sit here and try to teach a discussion or try to inform somebody on outer space. I know nothing. I'm going to lean into a specialist about that, right? Or a professional about that. But that doesn't mean that I can't do my own research. That doesn't mean that I can't do my make my own decisions or my own choices. And when it comes to our children, nobody is going to care ever as much as your child as you. So we have to make those decisions. And I find it very like wow, just like a wow feeling when you're talking about your daughter and you're saying, I knew. Like I knew they diagnosed her ADHD, they may have diagnosed her with whatever, but you knew that there was something else going on.
Well,
You
the
may have
problem
not
was,
known what the diagnosis specifically was, but you knew as a mom.
right. I just wanted to say the problem was the doctor said, and I remember this to a T, he said, children do not get bipolar. They are not bipolar. It only happens in older teens or adults. And I'm like, something is wrong. You can't tell me she doesn't have something.
And you spoke up and you continue to advocate for your child as she's gotten older. And I'm still hearing that that does still occur, right? Because she's an adult, she advocates for herself, but mom's her biggest cheerleader from conversations we've had.
Well, the other thing is, I even got out of the military. When I got out of the military, I got out a little early. And the reason I did is because of the issues she was having in school. I decided I was going to homeschool her. You know that thing where they tell you put your child's face in your hands and look at them. And I knew that if I gave her the one-on-one attention, that at least I could work with her. And so for that purpose, I homeschooled her for 3 years all through what they call middle school, to give her that foundation and to teach her how to deal in real life situations, not just book knowledge and stuff. She knew how to do checkbooks. She knew how to handle money. She knew how to think outside of the box. She understood old musicals as well as what's going on now, space, everything. And that's a lot of things that our kids don't get. But I knew she was extremely smart. There just was something a little wrong. Or I won't even say wrong, different. There was something a little different about her.
I wanted to ask you because we're talking about this concept of choosing joy during these tough times, right? So let's face it, we all have struggles that kind of come out of left field, like I mentioned before. So in this case, when we have to when we face that choice, right? When we face that choice to choose joy, but it feels bleak, right? Or it feels joyless. What do you do? What's your motivator? Because when we have a goal, right? We've got the motivator of the goal. So again, last week, Lily Beth's end goal was my miracle baby. She ended up with her miracle baby and made all the IVF worth it and all of those things. What happens though when there is no goal? These are just circumstances, life circumstances. For you, what was your motivator? What was your driver, if you will, um, for choosing joy?
She was beautiful. And I'm not talking about she was beautiful the way she looked. Yeah, every mom say their baby is beautiful.
We all
But
love our babies. Yes.
but she was beautiful. There was a side to her personality. I mean, even today, she can charm the birds out of the tree. There is something about her that just, in fact, right now, she's studying to be a music therapist,
Oh, that's
and
beautiful.
yes. And so, with that said, it was those times of being lucid, those times of being who she was. Um, and we would have fun. There would be times that because she understood musicals, we would be laughing and dancing around the house, or we would be singing to and talking to each other by singing opera. I'm not going to do it here on live on the podcast, but we'd be singing to each other, talking in opera and stuff. And then all of a sudden we'd hear the door outside and we go, shh, dad's home. And then we just run but we would have fun. We would go shopping together. And I'm talking about as a little girl. So we would find the things that worked for her and we'd embrace them more.
I love that. I love that. Um, you know, when kids have meltdown, now I'm thinking of a toddler, right? So when toddlers have meltdowns and they're having their temper tantrums, there's that old saying, the terrible twos turn into terrible threes, and now it's like, my goodness, terrible fours. I don't know. But there's that approach of get to their level, right? Get to their level, get to their eye level, kneel down, get to their eye level, have eye contact with them. Um, don't match their energy when they're freaking out, for lack of a better term, but rather communicate with them, right? And have them try to mirror you. One approach that I do with my toddler is, I try and whisper sometimes. So if he's yelling, 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 then I go the complete opposite and then I whisper. So it doesn't always work, but sometimes it does, and I love it. Love it. Like, yes, it worked. Um, but I'm hearing this, almost this approach that you took with your child of, you know what? I'm going to get at her level. So if she's going to sing opera, I'm going to sing opera, right? And this is how we're going to communicate. I'm going to meet her where she's at. Meeting her where she's at. And how beautiful is that? Because then I'm hearing that was your avenue, right? Of finding those moments where you could share joy, not just experience joy for you, but you could share joy with her.
We enjoyed each other. I mean, totally. We still do. I mean,
Do you
the
guys still do
sad
opera? I have to ask, do you still do opera voice?
yes, and you know what? Like I said, she's
I love it.
studying music. Her minor is in music, and I have a music background, so we still are always singing each other at each other and stuff like that. But and I think that helps. And just to go a little bit off, is her daughter is autistic, and we found out even with her doing the exercise of when she starts acting up, I just remove her from where she's acting up and I move her to a chair, a soft chair, and I say, you sit there until you're ready to behave. And I just ignore her. And then she'll look at me and she's crying and she goes, I okay now. I okay. And then she's ready and I put her back where she wants to be. But I've learned that through my dealing with my daughter is understanding what works. And there was no book, nobody,
Mm-mm.
no therapist who told me how to do this, because back then they just weren't doing that. And I hate to say this, but most of the therapists were men. And it just didn't work for us. You know, they didn't understand her and they didn't understand me.
I think that's a really interesting point. Again, going back to that care, when we seek care for our kids, we do have to find what works for them. We can't what's that I swear I always screw this up. What is it to take a square peg in a hole? How does it go?
Is square peg in a round hole or
In a
something like,
round
I
hole, is
don't
that what
know.
it is? I
Yeah,
always get the shapes confused, but you
we
know what I mean.
understand.
You know what I mean. That it doesn't fit, right? It doesn't fit. We try and because we sometimes want it to work so desperately, right? I've had situations in my life where I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, I want the magic pill. Somebody give me the magic pill
Girl,
and please just give me whatever the heck it is that I need so that I can make this work." And you're so desperate for an answer that you are willing to sometimes cover your ears of reason, and then we dim our mom light, we dim our um that instinct, that amazing mom instinct that we have, and we start dimming it down, right, and at times dumbing it down so that we can maybe find that answer and listen to whatever else, whoever is giving us information. But
I
man, it could be a slippery slope, right? Because like you said, you could have forced her to continue to go to those therapists, but you knew it wouldn't be working.
more medication. That's all it would
Mhm.
be. More medication, and the medication wasn't working. So we made a conscious decision as parents. We're not drugging her up. And I'm not saying drugs are bad. I'm saying she's on medication now. So, and she's grown. And so I want to encourage you, anyone out there, any mom out there who has a child that has bipolar, it doesn't go away. Or as far as I know, it has not gone away. She is a grown woman with 5 kids of her own, but she still struggles with it. And there comes a point when you and her, or you and your child, learn the best way to manage the disease or the mental health, the mental illness. You learn to manage it and you find out what works for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to touch on really quick. We talked about bathroom moments when we were talking about this conversation when we met, and I felt like that was really powerful and our moms needed to hear that today. So, coping mechanisms, right? Sometimes choosing joy feels like a long shot. So, you may be listening to this and you may be going, "Really, I'm trying to survive here. Like, I'm just trying to survive. Choosing joy, it sounds like a luxury. So can we bring it back a little bit and say, what about just surviving?" So in those moments when survival instincts kick right on time, just like as they should, but they take up a lot of energy, right? What would you say your survival moments were? How did you get through those moments where joy kind of sounded like it was too much? I just need to go to my basics.
The words that come to my mind is, I can't. I can't. And those words kept resounding in my head as I slid down the wall in the bathroom. And I was just on the floor. And I can't. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And just sitting there or laying there or sitting in the bottom of the shower and letting the water run down your face to cover the tears that are pouring down your face. You just have to roll through it. You just have to roll through it. And having someone there to support you is gold. But even if you don't, you rolled through it. It's like labor. It's like it reminds me when you're sitting there and you're watching the thing that tells you here comes a what do you call them now? I haven't had a child in so long. Here comes the pain. Here
Oh, a
and
contraction. A contraction?
contraction. Yes.
Okay, a labor
When
contraction.
yeah, when you're watching the
The
device telling you,
monitor.
here it comes, and you
Yes, and you
brace
brace for it.
yourself. Yes, you brace for it. And then you just and you just breathe through it. And that's all I could do. All I could do is just breathe through it. And then I'd say, okay, get up, get up. And it came to the point, there was a point in my life where I had to let her go. And I had to say to myself, I can't change her. I literally had to, and this is going to sound horrible, I had to turn my phone off. I had to turn my phone off to maintain my sanity. It came to the point where, with my faith, I turned the phone off because she would call me at all hours of the night, tell me whatever was going on. And then I'm up, I can't breathe, I can't think. And then I call her finally the morning and she goes, oh, I'm fine now. But yet I've been laboring through the night. And so I had to turn my phone off. And I told her, and you know what? I said, you know what? There's nothing I can do where she is to get there in any time to change the situation. I have taught her everything that I can. And for me, she's in God's hand. And so I had to let it go. She says, well, what if there's an emergency? I said, God's got you. There's nothing I can do. I can't get there in time. And I just had to trust in that. And so she knows to this day, my phone is off. When I go to bed, I turn it off. She knows that if she really has an emergency, she'll call her dad. Funny how girls don't call their dad unless it's really an emergency.
Mhm.
And so that's how we work it. And I learned that that was the only way that me as a mom could maintain my sanity and get through it.
Oh, ladies, I don't know about you, but I'm hearing boundaries, all right? And listen, this is the whole premise of Daily Mom Joy at the end of the day. The whole premise of Daily Mom Joy is about this idea that we have to take care of ourselves. We have to take care of the source. I give this analogy of we are the well, right? We are the source of water. We are the source of a small town. And if that gets damaged, if that gets contaminated, if that goes away, then the whole town suffers, right? The whole town suffers. So we have to take care of ourselves. And for you, that meant setting boundaries about phone calls, right? Without having the guilt overpower you, because that doesn't mean that Mischelle didn't sound, or feel guilty,
Oh
right?
my
I
gosh.
mean, Mischelle, did you feel guilty?
Girl, it was unbearable. I can't explain it, but it's when you have to do something even though you don't want to because it's tearing you apart, but you have to do it anyway.
But that right there is the premise of, hey, I have to take care of myself, and the boundary setting, right? We don't Boundaries aren't like this warm and fuzzy thing, okay? We're not going to necessarily like setting boundaries. Who the hell likes to set boundaries? Sometimes it's not, it's not like, oh, we want to set boundaries. It's out of a need, though. It's out of survival. You did this because you needed to survive. And if you couldn't get through the night, you weren't going to have the energy that you needed to care for her during the day where you could have an impact. So, moms, I hope you're listening that sometimes we just have to make really, really tough decisions when it comes to our boundaries. Boundaries isn't just saying no to things, saying no to engagements or saying no to tasks. Sometimes we have to say no to our own children. And if I can't think of a more, of a harder boundary than that, but you needed to do that to survive because this was your circumstance. This was your storm that you had to endure. This was where you had to choose, right?
I was literally getting sick. I mean, physically sick because I couldn't sleep, to the fact that every time you heard the phone ring, and even to this day, it affected me so much, about Pavlov's bell, or,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's like
Uh-huh.
it affected me so much that if I hear the phone ring at night, the first thing I think is, what's wrong?
Mhm.
Even if she's calling and asking me, Mom, what do I put in this recipe? And I'm like, I know you didn't call me, but but
Those
but
are the phone calls you do want, right? And
yeah,
then you're
but
like, "Oh."
you're still conditioned to wonder, oh no, what now? And so and that's why I have to leave it off, because I know it will put me in a tailspin.
Wow. Michelle, what a beautiful story. Very empowering story and very vulnerable and real story. We have moms right now that are listening to this that are actively dealing with this, whether it's a small child or maybe an adult child. So I hope you ladies have received some really special nuggets of wisdom here from Michelle and in her journey. Um, any last thoughts, Michelle, to our moms?
I just want to say one thing I did not know, and you're a therapist and you can speak on this, but I did not know that my daughter was considered high functioning. And
Mm.
so I don't want you to hear my story and think because maybe your child isn't high functioning, that there's something really wrong with them. There are different degrees of this disease. And so find out as much information as you can on what you're dealing with so that you can navigate it best for you and your family.
I think that's great advice. Moms, I'm going to add to that and and one of the key takeaways from this discussion is empower yourself to be an active participant in your child's healthcare. Don't let somebody make you feel like just because you don't have degrees, just because you don't, you aren't the expert in this field, that you don't have decision making power here. You have all the decision making power as a mother. You brought this child into this world. You've got more decision power than anybody. Okay. Again, don't get me started. I will be here all night. But the point is, be an active participant. Lean into your child's healthcare. Sometimes it can be scary, so we step back, right? But lean in, and that's what Michelle did. And with that, you're going to honor your individual child and where they're at. So while Michelle's story may not be exactly like your situation, right? You may be dealing with a medical diagnosis. It may not be a behavioral health issue, or maybe a major depression issue, or maybe an anxiety issue. It could be all kinds of things. It could be an autism diagnosis. The point is, everybody is different. Everybody's struggles are different. The more you lean into your child and honor where they are, now they're covered. As long as they got mama by their side, they are going to be good. And you need to believe that too. So I hope, if anything, anybody gets from this today is that it empowers you to and have that self-worth reminder. Your child is all you are all your child needs. So I'll get choked up. So I'm going to stop right there. Um, Michelle, if moms want to get a hold of you, how do we reach you? How do we reach you?
I would say reach me at because you want to meet me, meet.michelleo'neil.com. You can reach me there, and it's so easy. Just spell my name right and you'll get me.
Yes, Michelle is with an S. SC. It's funny. Every Michelle now I spell with an SC. It's hilarious. Moms, thank you again for tuning in. Michelle, thank you so much for bringing your positivity and your hope into a situation sometimes that can feel very hopeless for a lot of us moms. So I thank you so much, so much. I'm grateful for you, mamas. Tuning in. If you aren't part of our Mom Joy community, join our group, our daily Mom Joy Facebook group. If you're still not sure where you are in this journey and you need some guidance, you can find me at my website, www.groundyourheart.com. I will see you ladies next week. I hope everybody has a wonderful and beautiful week, and I will talk to you all soon.